The preparations for the protest march, the Farmers' March in London. Livestock farmer Colin Rayner. Colin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamon. Good morning.
What are you feeling about today, Colin?
We are angry as sin. As farmers, we have been betrayed to and lied to by the Labour Party and the Labour government. Before the election, they came to the NFU conference and promised us they wouldn't put up taxes. They promised they wouldn't put up the inheritance tax, and they lied. And they're now blaming that if they don't get this money, they won't have enough money for the National Health Service. If the government sold every farm in this country and used that money for the National Health Service, it still wouldn't be enough. And we are here today because we have been betrayed. And my farm has been owned by the same family since 1551. I'm only a caretaker, my generation, and my children and my cousins, they will be caretakers for the next generation. We are here to produce cheap food for this country, and safe food. And our family survived the First World War. Many of my members fell on the battlefields of Flanders. Our farm was shot up and bombed during the Second World War, having farm workers killed. We're not about to lie down and have our family inheritance stolen from us to waste money on the vanity projects of the Labour Party.
What do you feel about that inference that the state of the NHS is somehow the fault of farmers, and that you could reverse this? Therefore, you're obviously not being selfish, you're also being greedy, you're not paying your fair share. It's a pretty damning indictment, isn't it?
It is. I think it's disgusting and despicable to blame the farmers that the National Health Service isn't functioning. It's because they just waste money. And as I said, if they sold every farm in this country and put all that money to the National Health Service, you'll still have to wait for appointments, still have to wait for operations, and the hospitals will still be falling down.
Do you think
as farmers, we think it's very low and despicable?
Yeah, but what do you think the general public think? Do you think many of them are gullible enough to swallow that dirty political message? It's really bad political fighting. It's quite grim. Do you think that there are going to be people who will? We've just been standing outside the Farmers Club, and there were some scaffolders there, putting up scaffolding in this rain and snow, and they said, "God bless the farmers." And everywhere I go, the public love the farmers. They don't love this government. They love the farmers because we look after them. And just remember, it's always the farmers that come first when this country's in trouble. When there's floods, it's farmers that come and help rescue people. When there's snow, it's farmers that clear the roads. When we have trouble, it's always farmers.
Yeah, and goodness me, it's been difficult weather, hasn't it, recently as well?
The politicians don't like us either.
Yeah, and goodness me, the conditions for farming.
We've had awful weather.
Yeah, it's been awful. But I suppose the government will be absolutely steadfast in their belief that this is fair and proportionate. And the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies say that this won't affect the vast majority of farms, and that actually you already have more generous inheritance tax benefits than most people. So what would you say to those arguments? My argument's more lies from this government. The NFU have produced their figures, and it's just total lies and fabrication. And it's basically they're throwing stones from the greenhouse and they're trying to make the mud stick on farmers. And I think it's shameful of them. And it's lies. Today, why are 26,000 farmers coming here today to protest it against if it's only going to affect 500 farmers?
Well, Colin, let me say the Prime Minister is now speaking back. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is speaking back. They don't look as if they're going to come up with a compromise for you. They don't look as if they're going to do business with you on this one. Is this winnable for you?
Well, my view is the government won't change. And we won't change. There will be an impasse, and I think will be the poll tax, that legislation the Conservatives brought in the 80s. I think this may bring down the government eventually.
Do you foresee empty shelves in supermarkets? Do you see... sorry, I can see you're battling very noisy traffic there. I'll just let that siren pass for a second. Yeah, do you see empty shelves in the supermarkets, price rises, and the possibility that a lot of these farms will be sold and bought up by foreign owners?
Well, basically, it's going to be a field day for foreign owners buying up farmland, and we lost to the family farm. There will be shelves empty this winter due to the floods in Spain's awful weather throughout Europe. And also, why should we grow food if we're going to lose money? And I've got 3 daughters who want to carry on farming, and I am the 10th generation. I might be the last generation that farms my farm. And we've got a government that wants to cover our countryside in solar panels where they could put them on buildings. You know, I think we have an insane government. I feel quite strongly about it.
Yeah,
well, we're gonna feel what you and a lot of colleagues are up to today, and see and watch you and join in those marches. But Colin, thank you for making yourself available to us, and hopefully we'll get to speak later on in the day as well.
Yeah, thank you. And we're enjoying the weather down here. We love the weather. Farmers' weather never lets us down.
Yeah, good old flat cap, you'll be fine. Thanks ever so much.
The thing is, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, she's trying to take the moral high ground on this one, and front page headline Daily Telegraph, and she's saying these farmers must pay. They must pay, but because of them, the NHS is in such dire condition. I would tell her to stick it up her backside. Absolutely. What's it got to do with the farmers, the state of the NHS?
It's absolutely extraordinary, this whole story, and I apologise in advance if I lose my usual cool, sleeky exterior over this, because, as you say, it's just astonishing. There was a story yesterday that the NHS was spending 500 million quid or so extra on locum GPs because they've got a whole mess with how they recruit and hold on to GPs. They're spending all this money to keep them going. That's about how much money even the government admits that this change to hit farmers will cost. So you fix that one issue, you don't need to do this. So why are they really doing this? And I'm afraid it's not that dissimilar, as Elon Musk says, to the kind of Stalin policy of de-kulakization. The kulaks were the kind of slightly wealthier peasants in the interwar period that the Communist Party and the Soviet Union went after, liquidating the kulaks, destroying them, destroying the family farms, collectivising them all in the power of the state. And why is that? Because rural communities aren't the sort of people who back the Labour Party.
I mean,
that's pure class war.
Yeah, we're used to so desperately seeing this line from the Labour Party that they don't change their mind. They are totally inflexible on this. The Prime Minister said over the weekend, I will defend this all day long. Obviously, he's out overseas today, so he won't have to. But they are saying that they've committed $5 billion extra to farming in the budget. They believe that this is fair and proportionate. They're already treated better than the rest of us when it comes to inheritance tax. They say it must be used to fund public services, big question marks around that, and that 50% of food in the public sector is to be produced by British farmers, which will be a big boost to them. So they should be grateful for this, should they not?
The fact that the government doesn't understand the impact that this policy is going to have, and as the leader of the NFU, and by the way, really good on the National Farmers Union, as we were joking earlier, probably the only union that Labour is in bed with, but the fact that this guy is actually standing up and saying the truth, rather than that kind of, oh, well, on the one hand this, on the other hand that other lobby groups feel the need to try and do to keep government on side. Good on them for just coming out and saying, and calling a spade a spade.
But how dare she blame the woes of the NHS on farmers?
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, because, knowing Rachel Reeves' glittering CV as we do, she obviously must have spent 20 years as a farmer, just as she was probably, Prime Minister of Norway, as well as being an economist at the... Oh, no, she wasn't that, was she?
She's just
Because
economical with the truth,
CV.
James, rather than being a chief economist.
Perfect line.
It's a funny one, isn't it? They just aren't going to change their mind. I mean, will this protest do anything? I mean, it just seems...
Why
like
couldn't
they
she say,
listen.
thank you to the farmers for funding our missiles for Ukraine? Because that's about all this is going to raise, about 7 million quid.
Yeah, I think that the idea that they will have to reverse ferret on this and give up doesn't seem likely just now. I suspect this protest will be, which I'm going to go on, by the way. I think it's very important, as many people that can just take a bit of time off work, go and do that. But if you look at some of the protesting that's happened on the continent, it's become a big move. A lot of this is sort of net zero inspired as well. In the Netherlands, there was a big push to try and impose a lot of net zero policies on Dutch farmers. Well, they've now won major seats in the recent election and have, I think, government ministers in place in the Netherlands. So there is a kind of rural force in there. And you've got 100 or so Labour MPs who actually represent rural communities. I'm sure they all had to rush out and buy brand new clean wellies for the first time.
But
they'll start to realise.
Have done a bit of maths, and only 7 of those rural constituencies, they think, by their calculations, are under threat from this particular outrage. I mean, it's early on in the electoral cycle, obviously. But, there's a lot more that you'd think would be sort of worried. But Only 7, according to Telegraph.
I think that with the way that campaigns work, that this stuff will pick up a head of steam. And you've got somebody like Jeremy Clarkson and the enormous success of Clarkson's Farm, which is, I think, Amazon's most successful show ever. It's, you know, this much vaunted soft power that the Labour Party seems to care about so much. It wants soft power around the world so much that it's giving away sovereign territory and kowtowing to the Chinese, as we're about to talk about. But if you want soft power, look at the effect of Clarkson's Farm on this. And you saw, you know, someone like a media figure, as Donald Trump really was, what happened when he got involved in politics. Just imagine if Jeremy Clarkson says, you know what, OK, I'm going to throw my hat into the ring in politics. What a grenade that would be.
So in the court of public opinion, you think Starmer against Clarkson, it's a no contest, really. Clarkson will walk that.
I think he'd absolutely walk it. I mean, Keir Starmer has already admitted, you know, he doesn't have a favourite novel, he doesn't have a favourite song, he doesn't dream. He's the most grey, bland, sort of destructive
force. There's a favourite football team. He's there all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, of course. In the fancy director's box, isn't it? You know, these guys were elected into office basically by default. My old party, the Conservatives, lost that election, and we know all the many reasons why that is. Labour didn't win it, but they're walking around as if they are supremely popular. They've already become less popular than Rishi was at his absolute nadir.
How on earth have they managed to do that? We know the instances and the subjects that have contributed to all of that, but surely a blind man on a galloping horse would see that they were in trouble with, you know, things like the winter fuel payments and whatever. So why pursue them?
So I genuinely think that 14 years out of government and the kinds of people that they've been selecting and electing, these people have just got it into their heads, well, because we're Labour, and a lot of them do sound slightly adenoidal like that, because we're Labour, we're good people, and therefore they're allowed to do terrible things. And because the Tories are evil, it was the Tories deliberately trying to destroy the country. And they sort of think, well, I'm going to come in now and everything is going to be fine, and all this is just evil right-wing confected nonsense. They have yet to realise what a reckoning is coming to them.
Yeah, and often, I mean, tell me if you agree with this, but it often seems that these kind of class-based policies, whether it be on private schools or on farmers who they see as these wealthy landowners, actually ends up affecting the people that Labour should be representing the most. So these children in good state schools will be squeezed out because house prices will go up around them. And it's the same with the farmers. The food prices are going to go up in the shops as a result, and those who can least afford it will suffer. You know, the people that Labour should be representing.
You are completely right. The most powerful law in all of politics is the law of unintended consequences. And this is the problem all the way through government. The Treasury in particular, that it says, right, this money will raise, this policy will raise this much money. But it never takes into account all this, what you call the second-order effects of this. So if you say, right, I'm going to put up this tax, go, well, I'll take my kids out of this school then. As you said, put them into the state school system, that will have more pressures there. If you say, I'm going to put this tax up on capital gains, OK, I'm not going to bother building my company in the UK. I'm going to go to Donald Trump's America, so for all the bad there, it's very business-friendly. Or I'm going to go to Dubai, where there's no income tax. You know, all these sorts of things. And what's going to happen? Those of us who are left at the end of this Labour term are going to be poorer, weaker, less well-fed, clearly, and they're damn sight more miserable by the looks of things.
Those are the views of James Price. James, we thank you for those, political commentator.